Alrighty. Hey, true believers, fellow film fans out there. You know, this is the first time we got together in 2024 to talk about a movie. We are dropping the ball on the movie channel, really. Yeah. I've seen a whole bunch, but this is the first time we actually decided to talk about one. This is Late Night with the Devil. This is a movie I've been wanting to see. It was released last year, limited release, and freaking I think it was more in Europe than it even was here. And this is something everybody's saying, when are you going to open? When are you going to open? Get this thing into American theaters.
It went wide about a month ago and then vanished again.
Well, yeah, it's more for American audience. It's more of a 2024 than it is a 2023. And it had like maybe 2-3 weeks, maybe a month in theaters, and then it went to Shudder. And so this is a movie that I'd been chasing around to the point where I finally found a theater, and it was like, oh, well, in 2 days it's going to be on, so you want to see something else. So me and my wife, when we went to the movies, instead of seeing this, saw Godzilla versus Kong, which is a big theater movie. So I don't think we chose poorly.
No.
For this one, it was a case of let's turn out all the lights and watch it in the room, just us and the glow of the TV screen there.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you something. This blew me away. This was such an incredible film. And I want to talk about a lot of elements to it. It's getting a lot of write-ups. It broke records for Shudder for being one of their biggest, if not the biggest streamer, or definitely
well deserved. Couldn't happen to a better movie.
Yeah. So there's a lot to talk about, and I want to go beyond just the usual stuff, the acting, special effects, and so forth, which there aren't many. This is a lot of first of all, right out the gate, this is one of the best found what do they call those found
footage
things?
Yeah,
found footage.
I couldn't conceivably agree more. I normally hate found footage because
it's all shaky cam. Yeah, if it's a modern person where everybody's used to holding that camera straight to we all know that now because everybody's a YouTuber.
And they never do anything interesting with it. This is how you do a found footage in a way that makes sense. And it's also a freaking love letter to like old school retro, like 70s Johnny Carson era late night talk shows. Well,
we're going to get to that. That's one of the things I want to talk about. It's not just the story. It's not just the acting on this. The aesthetic of this film is incredible. This is something, it brought up a nostalgia, not a pleasant one. I was way too young to particularly enjoy Dick Cavett or Tom Jones or whatever his name was. Something Snyder. Maybe it was Tom Snyder, not Tom Jones, Tom Snyder. And that's who this is. This isn't Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson was the guy that he was trying to beat. He is one of the lower tiered guys. He's, and it really did capture that. You can see it right in our background, the oranges and the yellows, the aesthetic of its stage, the whole thing. It looked like one of those shows that, even though I wanted to get to that monster movie of the week, I had to sit through the Tom Snyders and the Dick Cavetts to get to it. That was just one of those things. But and after a while, by the way, I could say Dick Cavett was boring, but after a while I was with my grandfather just watching it the same, but it really did capture that aesthetic so perfectly. It's one of those things that if you watched it in retro now, it would have been cleaned up. The pictures cleaned up. This still has its graininess. They went all out to make you feel like you were watching this on a television set.
Yeah, it's very much capturing everything you'd want about that aesthetic, and also everything you'd want about this show format as well. Which I also really like that they actually make the movie revolve around the sort of Halloween special show format, something like a Darren Brown or Uri Geller type figure, and instead of just having it be a normal one and then weird stuff happens. No, this is actually supposed to be their Halloween special, and I really liked that because you did see the kind of almost unsolved mystery thing
Well,
in some of these, and it was cool.
and one thing they really did well here was the chintzy jokes, the corniness of it. Is they're dealing with a serious subject. He's still trying to throw in what would be called a dad joke now, because
The
and
show goes on, yeah.
that's how that humor would have been back then. Because all in all, if he really did offend Joe Public, he would have been taken down. It would have been shut off right away. And so the playing it up every few moments, playing it like, oh, ha, 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 isn't this fun and isn't this funny kind of thing, was part of what really made
You
this
still got to
show.
play the game. You still got to
Mhm.
almost be the
Yeah.
carnival barker.
Some of the behind the scenes things is what made this script really sharp, not just as a horror film, but as a script in itself. That you got to think of these little things. How would the public react? How would the people behind the scenes react? Nobody would think it would be real. It would, up to a certain point, it would have to be TV magic, so forth and so on. And by the way, they would have shut down at a certain scene when he hypnotizes everybody, and the guy, spoiler alert, he rips open that show would have been shut off the air right then and there.
Which I mean, they do acknowledge that because this is supposedly the lost footage from the lost episode of the show that we're seeing.
Yeah. So it really did very well about capturing everything, the essence, and I do think that the behind the scenes added to the drama and such. I got to tell you, this is one of those horror films. I don't think this is one of those horror films where it's going to be like, oh my gosh, it scared it's just one of, I was never felt like the little scare feels, but I did feel like I could not turn this movie off until it was done.
I do think they were trying to go for the more horror comedy route, and in that vein, I think they succeeded because you did have the juxtaposition of what if we did stick undeniable supernatural stuff onto one of those shows where everybody's waiting for the Penn and Teller skeptic to come and poo-poo everything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's get to the characters here. I'm trying to make sure that we talk about this, but we're not going to go over a half hour. First of all, I do want to talk about ever since Dark Knight Returns, I have been a fan of Dave Dastmalchian. And I learned how to say his name. He was on a Kevin Smith interview, and he goes, "Oh, the way to pronounce my name is Dave Dastmalchian, and he did that over and over. Okay, there you go. That's how you pronounce his name. But he played the crazy guy that Harvey Dent was going to kill in The Dark Knight. And ever since then, I was like, oh, hey, it's that guy. Oh, it's that guy. All right. Hey. So I kind of liked watching his career grow. Of course, he hit with Ant-Man, and he was brilliant in Suicide Squad. Glad to see he gets his chance to head a movie here, and he does very well with it. This guy, and he did it in The Dark Knight. This guy plays desperation very well. I don't know if I would see him as normal dad, but he plays that desperate kind of everything's going off the rails
down on his luck, sleaze bag sort of person. Yeah.
And of course, he's playing the guy who's chasing the dream. He wants to beat Johnny Carson, and I don't want to reveal too much because I don't want to reveal too much. Even though I'm sure everybody who's wanted to see this movie has. We're late on a review. But
if you're waiting for a recommendation, though, please, for the love of God, see this movie.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so I really do like his character. I think he plays him to a T, what it would be like, especially with the bad jokes and such. I do think, though, the jokes are where he falters a little bit. I don't think Dave Dastmalchian, while I think he can be funny, as you saw in Suicide Squad, I don't think he's a comedian. There's a difference
Yeah,
between
he doesn't have the comedic timing down.
right. There's a difference between being able to tell a joke and being funny sometimes.
But then again,
And
I mean, to be fair, he's having to switch between like 5 or 6 different frames of mind at the drop of
mhm.
a hat in this, so that could also be part of it.
But this also feeds into the character as you find out what drives his career. So it's almost like his career is an unnatural one. So he has this young lady and her doctor, as you see to the left in the background photo here, on, and she is supposedly possessed by a demon. And he's going to be having a conversation with them and talk about what it's like to be a doctor to that kind of patient, what it's like to be that kind of patient. And just for the other side, if you looked on the right-hand side of this particular background, that's a gentleman whom in the 1970s would have been named the Amazing Kreskin. This is a guy who actually exists, who would go around the country debunking mentalists and the bending the spoons and basically the supernatural.
Teller, so to speak.
Yeah, he's the guy who would basically debunk these people who came out, and there were a lot of them who came out. It was like, oh, we're mentalists, we talk to ghosts, and we search the supernatural and all that kind of thing.
There will always be a supply of crazies for those that want the crazies.
Right, and he's the guy to tell you, hey, look, this is how they're doing this is how they're doing that. Here, he's an asshole. You know, I saw a couple of Amazing Kreskin things, and he was never an asshole. He was never a jerk to the people, unless the people were obvious scammers. Like if you're at
bilking people, yeah.
Yeah, if you're at a carnival and you're doing a carnival trick, okay, fine. But if you are like, I'm Miss Cleo, I'm going to read your fortune, give me $50.
Reunite you with your lost loved ones and
right.
Then he for millions of dollars.
Yeah, and then he stepped up and he did so. And I would see that if he was on this kind of show, that maybe behind the scenes they would actually ask him to be more abrasive. They used to be that way with the Jerry Springer show. Not a lot of people know this. If you saw the behind the scenes, they would ask their guests to kind of overplay it a bit.
They want the drama. They wanted the drama really, really badly. That was the shtick.
Yeah, so he's coming off like a complete jerk as we see the doctor and the young lady. They sit down for an interview, and boom, you get the devil come out, and you get her confronting the host of the show, Dave Dastmalchian there. Jack was his name, right?
Jack, yeah.
Jack, yeah, okay. And you get the whole thing. It's a great interview. At one point, they even levitate the chair off the floor. And the Amazing Kreskin, after it's all over, everybody's wowed. And he goes, well, let me show you something. And he grabs one of the guys and he hypnotizes them to believe that worms are coming out of his body. And supposedly he hypnotizes the
audience, massive,
and the whole audience. Yeah,
allegedly, yeah.
They do acknowledge, they even ask, is there anybody here who didn't see what just happened? And some people do raise their hand, which means, you know, some people aren't going to be hypnotized. They show the footage of the young lady's interview, though, and it actually happens. Mm-hmm. And blah, 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 yada, yada. Lots of stuff happens. All shit hits the fan. And I mean, that's basically long and short of it.
And Mr. Skeptic gets his I opened the Ark of the Covenant from Raiders moment.
I know, right? The whole thing about his character is he, in order to justify what happens to him, he has to come off with an ass. Otherwise, it's yeah.
I think they did do a decent job of explaining the reason why he's so on edge about this is because, assuming this isn't real, assuming it is a bit, this is child abuse. Which I can see kind of where he's coming from with that. Even though he is the nominated skeptical asshole who needs to bite it in the third act so that we can be certain that the supernatural does exist.
Oddly enough, the sympathy character isn't anyone on stage here. It isn't the little girl who, of course, you know, it isn't the doctor. It's not the host. It's not Jack, Dave Dastmalchian there. It's the sidekick. It's his, the
cameraman.
Paul, it's his Paul from David Letterman, or Andy for Conan. You know, it's his Ed McMahon
Yes,
character.
man. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, he's a good family man. He doesn't like what's going on. He's a religious man. You find out through the course of the show that people are leaving. Like people are like, yeah, I'm out. I'm not doing this stuff. I'm going. And what ends up happening to him, you know, you feel bad. You feel bad for him. You feel like everybody else kind of made the bed they have to lie in now.
But this guy is just trying to do his best with the hand he's been dealt, and it turns out the hand he was dealt was all low cards here.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. I'll let you take the floor if you say what you want, because I know I've done most of the like normal. It's I do most of the talking here, but
I am very well aware I'm here to be the metaphorical yes man. In this,
I got to say the horror to me, the horror of this movie was what's happening next. I could not, when I put it on, like a lot of times, if you ever watch a movie at home, maybe you're like this. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, okay, that's cool. Or maybe I'll be working if I'm not at a theater, something around here will distract me. When I watch this movie, no distractions. The lights were, I turned the lights out. Gail she was like, click, click. You know, and she never puts her phone down.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. She's like a 16-year-old with a freaking phone sometimes. And this movie captured her. It is just absolutely.
It is remarkably well done for what it is, being this sort of out of the box horror comedy type thing. It is very good at basically doing a pastiche of a pseudo Johnny Carson back in the day that has now been smack bang in the middle of something that's way too above their pay grade, so to speak.
If Hollywood is smart, and they're not, they're going to learn between this and Godzilla, because this is two ends of the spectrum. Godzilla is a special effects show that was made for what, $15 million? And then you have this, which maybe have been a couple of $1 million to make the movie?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's under 10. And
they were successful in their genre. You have a big, you have a small, and they were very well loved, and they were very successful for them. You know, obviously this isn't making in-game money, but you're not spending in-game money, so the profit is more. And I hope that Hollywood is smart for just 5 seconds. Let's have a 1970s revival. Not like every movie has to be set in the 1970s, but all of a sudden movies got a little bit smaller, more focused, until, of course, Jaws and Star Wars came along. And it was all about the script and all about the story.
Or at the very least, find a unique spin on something that is trite or like cliche at this point. Because we were saying, it would have been so easy to make this your average generic, like January style found footage movie, but they didn't. They were like, what if we actually took this found footage concept and played with it to an actual effect, to an actual point? And they did, and it worked so very well.
This is not Paranormal Activity. Okay, I'm going to give you the last 2 minutes until they sign off. Go. What did you think of this movie? Because I did a lot of talking. So
I really enjoyed it. I'm very much a student of history. I'm very much a fan of like retro stuff and antiques and that sort of thing. And I've actually been on a Vincent Price kick recently, and I've been looking up a lot of his old clips, and some of them were on these kind of shows. And so to see something like this is very interesting, because I know at least enough of the history, and I know at least enough of the aesthetic to be in on it. And of course, with me being, me being the magic and supernatural and occultism guy, I'm also well versed in that scene. So to see this really work, and of course, the twist that we're not giving away was also a really interesting twist, because usually this kind of thing is, normal person just shows up and is in way over their head, and they all bite it because, well, you look too long into the abyss. But without spoiling anything, there's actually a reason why this particular devil has come for this particular dude. And when you see it, it's like, oh, well, this recontextualizes everything then, doesn't it? Shite.
Yeah. But there you go. It's definitely 2 thumbs up since that's
Yeah,
not being used these days.
I'm definitely getting this on Blu-ray as soon as it
Absolutely.
comes out, or as soon as I have money to. Because I
Absolutely.
love horror movie. I love horror movies. I love horror comedies, especially. I love things that put a retro spin on things, and this just hit all the buttons for me. So
Yeah, me
yeah,
too.
10 out of
Absolutely.
10, or at least 9
Um,
out of 10. I don't know if I'd go 10 out of 10.
well,
But
you know that the way we
this
score
is
things,
special.
1 and 2 is horrible, 3 and 4 is bad, 5 and 6 is average, 7 and 8 is good, 9 and 10 is levels of awesome.
I'm definitely willing to give this a 9.
And 9,
Again, it hit so many buttons and did so well and so economically, and it's
yeah,
such an interesting spin on so many things. So yeah, this gets a 9 for me.
I think, and I may be overstating this, of course, everything's subject to change by the time we make our top 10 of the year, but I cannot see this not being in the top 10. I cannot imagine looking forward something knocking this out of the top 10.
No way. This is probably gonna be in my top 5 unless something really comes along to shake things up. This is probably going to be in my top 5 somewhere.
For what it is,
Nefarious was my number 1 last year, so it does sort of fit my pattern, I suppose.
For what it is, I want to give this movie. I want to give this movie an A+. I do. I don't just want that A. I don't want the. I want that this movie gets the A+. I'm giving it 10 out of 10. Yeah.
No, it is. It's really it really is special, and I hope that this becomes like a cult following type movie. If any movie deserves it, I think it's this movie.
So I have seen the best movie of the year. I've seen the worst movie of the year. We got to get together and talk about more movies, or at least you got to get together and listen to me talk about some too. Anywho, thanks for hanging out with us. Don't forget to click like, share, subscribe, ring the notification bell if you haven't done it already, and share. Help out the channel. That's actually the easiest thing you can do right there. And as always, thank you very, very much for watching. Have a good night.
Cheers, guys.